Welcome to my latest experiment. This is a big one, the one I've been waiting for all my life.
What is it?
Try to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Oh my God.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
And there is no one that does it better.
The Guy and Harley podcast, streaming all over your face.
Perhaps that was the most important part.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Pigville on the internet. God, I hate being bald. I get so jealous when I see those guys who have hairstyles like Guile from Streetfighter. I want to have cool hair like a young Asian man. Instead, I have hair like an old Asian man. Welcome along to the Guy and Harley show. I'm Harley Neville.
I'm Guy Figdon. The Guy and Harley podcast.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It is a show.
So this is episode 11.
10. It's episode 10.
So
we skipped
we
one.
both fucked up to begin with.
I didn't say episode 10.
Where did you get that thought from?
Well, I was walking today to work,
Yes.
and I saw a young Asian man with cool, trendy, anime hair
Yes.
going all over the show. He was having a date with a young woman, a breakfast date by the look of it, and I thought to myself, God, I wish I could do that with my hair.
Did just you run up to him and go, appreciate it. Appreciate every fucking second. Don't you get it?
Enjoy it while it lasts, you son of a bitch. It's more like what I said.
This is precious. This is like gold.
Yeah. So really, it's concerning because I can't do the things with my hair that, a lot of people take for granted. They're like, oh, I might spike my hair up today. I feel like doing something different with my hair. Well, good for you. You can. I can't.
Well, you have two.
I resort to growing giant beards.
You have two styles, which is completely shaved head, or not like a number two hair, combined with a beard.
Yeah, which is also just known as lazy hair. It's growing, and it started growing out, and now I look really obviously bald on top. That's what happens when I let it grow.
Well, I do think that people don't really think about when they think about losing their hair that, everyone's like, oh, it's not so bad. It's just hair. Like they go, it's just hair.
Yeah.
You go, yeah, it's just a thing that everyone else has that I don't.
Yeah.
It's a style choice that everyone else can make except me.
Yeah, my fashion as far as hair goes has been the same since I was 22 and will continue to be the same for the rest of my life.
So this
it's depressing.
This is like, I think it's that thing. It's like, don't worry about it. It's like, no, fucking worry about it. This is serious.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's right there as well. It's not like it's, I don't know, losing your fingernails, for example. Not everybody sees your hands, It's all right. You could probably get away with that if men's fingernails fell out when they reach a certain age. But, it's your hair, man. It's right there. Everyone looks at your face. They see your bald head.
And they make a judgment call on it.
They do. I remember before I was balding, I used to see balding men and think, just inherently, I just always thought, I could kick his ass.
You thought you could beat up any bald guy?
Any guy who just had a receding hairline,
right.
I just made him look like a pussy, I thought. Now that's me. I walk down the street and these little punk kids are like, they think they could kick my ass. Yeah, well, they probably could, to be fair.
Yeah. But
so that's where I'm at.
It's interesting. Speaking of, you mentioned Guile in Street Fighter.
He has a large flat top.
Which leads us into one of our fan questions.
Yeah, which was Julie Clark asked, Tekken or Street Fighter, keeping in mind that the answers will affect my opinion of you forever. So, I'll go first on this one,
sure.
I guess. Tekken or Street Fighter. For me, it's really like choosing between two things that you really don't give a shit about. But I would lean in a big way. Well, it gets worse, mate, because I would lean in a big way towards Tekken.
Damn.
not Street Fighter.
Damn.
And you know, I mean, I understand that Street Fighter is a classic. I get that, you know, and it's got some street cred for that. But Tekken was just a bit more fun for me. The combos were cooler. The characters were more interesting. I kind of preferred the storylines.
Bro, you can't be messing with Ryu. Ken?
Yeah.
M. Bison?
I didn't really like Ryu or Ken. I was always a Guile
What
man.
about Vegeta, man?
Vegeta? That's Dragon Ball Z.
What was that guy with the mask?
Vader.
Vega.
Lord Vega.
Vega.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was a bit later on.
There's a pretty cool concept, though.
Yeah, well, he was a cage fighter with a mask.
And you could beat his mask off.
And he had a Wolverine claw.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't attached.
Yeah.
But you know, just that idea that he didn't want to mess up his face, so with a mask he could beat the mask off his face.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm definitely a Tekken man.
Chun Li, bro, how sexy is Chun Li?
Chun Li was good. She earned Street Fighter some points. I'll give you that.
Cammy.
Wow, Chun Li's
tops. Sure. Sakura.
Also, bit disappointed that there was just no mention made of Mortal Kombat, because that's the one I would choose.
Oh, forget about Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat
is completely like, I get they had some cool ideas, like the whole finish him and fatalities and
graphic violence.
all that stuff was awesome, but it is fucking unplayable, man. Like,
oh, no way.
Like the controls are terrible.
Street Fighter.
It's incredibly dysfunctional. Like it is well known to be not a lesser of those three.
And perhaps in the Street Fighter circles.
No, just in the beat 'em up circles, man.
Nah, like, it was good. Like, I enjoyed that. You know, back, forward. That's it. Now that's how what a move is. You know, none of this quarter circle punch business.
I can't tell.
Quarter circle punch, I could never do them. That's why I never play Ryu or Akuma or
You could
Ken.
never do a fucking fireball. No wonder you didn't like Street Fighter.
Well, you know, that's why I liked Guile, because you just hold back for 2 seconds, then press forward punch, and you got
Sonic Boom.
Sonic Boom. But you know, what's up with how Ken, Ryu, and Akuma are all the same person?
No,
same moves.
They have subtle differences because they all chained under the same master, bro. Come on.
What a cop out.
Well, so of course I've got to pick Street Fighter, and there's many reasons for that. And also, you haven't even played the new Street Fighters, right?
No, I guess I'm referring to the classics.
Yeah, so you've got to take into account the history of the game from Street Fighter 2 to the first Tekken to now. And you know, Street Fighter 4 is fucking epic. You know, it's deep. But I've got to go Street Fighter, of course. I am Ryu, right? Mm-hmm. I'm always walking off into the sunset searching for the next challenge.
Right.
Unsatisfied.
Yeah.
That's me, man.
Okay.
That's my life.
Yeah.
And have given up my life to a discipline, which means no girls.
Right.
Unlike Ken, who he wanted it all. You know, he wanted the fortune, the fame, the woman, and he got slacker because of it.
Right.
You know, so...
Well, they're arguably more popular.
No, Ryu's still more popular than
Really?
Ken. Yeah, I think so. I think again, I mean, probably not necessarily as a playable character, but as a character.
Right.
People do love Ken's Dragon Punch.
Yeah.
The Dragon Punch, his works wonders.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've got to go Street Fighter. Also, just for the memories, man, like I remember, this is how old I am, I remember being in arcades when Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition had just come out, and it was this huge thing, and people literally, this is insane if you think about it now, people would queue up. Like, there'd be a queue of 10 people waiting to play Street Fighter Championship Edition.
Yeah.
And they had more than one. They had like 3 of those Street Fighter games.
Yeah.
And this was at Wizards in Dunedin, which was like a big arcade place, which is what like time zones are now.
Yeah.
And anyway, I just remember that like moment, and then you'd get on the boards and you'd play a little game and you'd be like, oh, this is cool. And then you'd probably lose after 2.
Get your ass kicked and get kicked off.
But then I also played it. I thrashed the fuck out of it on the Super Nintendo, and I became a master. I could clock it on Street Fighter 2 World Warrior. I could clock on the highest difficulty level without losing to get a special ending. But that was back in the days, and now, all the new Street Fighters, I haven't like kept up with it. I still play it a little bit, but it's not the same. I'm a retro man these days.
Yeah.
So 1 vote Tekken, 1 vote Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Julie, you decide which of us you disown.
I feel like she's going to be on the Street Fighter side.
I think so. She's a bit of a retro style
I just
girl.
Got a feeling. But yeah, so there you go. This episode of the Guy and Harley Show started off with some in-depth analysis of video games
And balding.
and balding. Yeah.
And the controversy surrounding the two.
Yeah. Dhalsim, he was a balding Street Fighter character.
Yeah, he was. Also Sagat, he was bald.
Yeah.
So clearly the Street Fighter designers were cool with the baldies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk... I mean, there's a lot of important things we've got to talk about today.
Yep.
First one I wanted to talk about, very sad. Very, very sad. Mm-hmm. The author, Terry Pratchett, died, I think, last Thursday. So it's just over a week ago when you're hearing this. Terry Pratchett is the author of the Discworld novels and several other books, but he was one of my all-time favourite authors. And when I was a kid, I'd sort of kind of fallen out of love with reading, to be honest. Just other interests had, taken over. I was more into sports and playing hockey and
video games.
Absolutely and so kind of the time for reading, I just kind of gotten over it to a degree, and then I started reading these Discworld novels and was completely hooked, completely addicted. They're amazing. They're just incredibly witty and funny and satirical. And, he could sort of, the way he would write, he could almost write in like different genres within this universe that he'd created. So the stories could leap around with all these different interesting characters. Death was a character that was in sort of 3 novels, and he had the Ankh-Morpork Watch, which was like a kind of detective, and those were more sort of almost like noir style, kind of thriller mysteries almost. And then he would have stuff with Rincewind the Magician, who was kind of this inept magician that could never do really any magic, and it always seemed like at any moment he would be killed. But like the hourglass, which Death looks at everyone's life expectancy with, his was so twisted and convoluted, it would seem like it was all going to run out, and then it would take a dip and a turn, and he would still survive. And I just I thought it was amazing, and it also sort of made me really start thinking about, like, I enjoyed it so much, it got me sort of back into writing as well, and sort of writing little bits and pieces, which it was also something that I had lost interest in and passion for around that time. So Terry Pratchett for me is like a seminal artist who sort of influenced me heavily. And, I think, one of the saddest parts of, as we grow up and get a bit older is, our heroes die. All those people that sort of kind of really inspired us with kids, they're getting older now. And he was actually quite young. He was 66, but he had early onset Alzheimer's, I believe. And he had been suffering from that since 2008 or 2009, where he suffered a mini stroke. And then they thought it was as a result. Actually, then he got diagnosed with this. And to be honest, the last book that I read of his, I thought was not quite as good as the other ones, and I did wonder whether it was a result of his condition that had kind of got a step slower, because it just seemed like it just wasn't quite up to the same standard, because they'd all been just so incredibly consistent as well. It was like he could lend his hand to anything and do it well, in this world. And yeah, I thought it was really upsetting. It was very upsetting to me, because I also he came to do a book reading at the Dunedin Public Library when I was about 16 years old, and I didn't go to it. And he was my hero, like he was fully my hero back then. And the reason I didn't go to it was because I didn't want to wait in line for 2 hours, which, if you think back to it, is fucking absurd. It is ridiculous that I would not spend 2 hours in a line to see someone that had given me so much pleasure and joy, had been such an inspiration, and like, he was the fucking man to me and still is. And I didn't do that, and he didn't come back for any more book signings, probably because fucking no one showed up to the first one. And it was an anomaly that he was even there, that he was even down in Dunedin. It was almost like, his tour manager didn't understand New Zealand and didn't understand how small Dunedin was, and therefore kind of messed up the booking, and he was like, oh, well, that's a major city in Dunedin, which technically it is, but a major city in New Zealand, sorry, but technically that's true, but not really.
Only by very local standards.
Yeah, and so, I didn't go to that, and I did get his autograph. My mum went.
Yeah.
And she got his autograph for me, and he was quite amused by the fact that I didn't want to come, and he was very gracious, and he signed my thing. And I didn't do that. And I now have to live with that.
Yep.
And live with my own stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was really upsetting when I found out he died. And I think that serves as a lesson, which I talked about on this Facebook update, which I wrote, which is like, if you really like something, if you really like someone, whether it's a band, it's an artist, whether it's your best fucking friend, it's someone that you know locally, it's anybody that you appreciate their work, just tell them. Mm-hmm. Just make sure you tell them, because one day they will be gone. And, you'll be in this position that I'm in, which is feeling like a fucking total idiot.
Yeah.
And, had that opportunity, didn't take it. So take those opportunities.
Although in the case of your best friend, you don't need to tell me, because you will be the one who dies first. So I should probably tell you.
Yes.
Hey, mate, I really appreciate all the work you do.
Thank you.
I like the work. I really appreciate your sense of humour. I think you put a lot of great positive stuff out into the world.
Oh, thanks, mate. Yeah. I appreciate that. Well, I will say on my 30th birthday, I got a lot of that. People saying, thanks. Yeah. And, we wouldn't be here without you, and we really appreciate what you do. And
talking about all his kids. They wouldn't be there without him.
Talking about my friends, I don't have any kids that I know of. And, it was actually really special. It was one of my favorite birthdays, because I was like, oh, shit, here I am sort of toiling away, working away. And that's another thing you got to think about. You're just kind of doing this stuff. You don't know if it's having an effect. You don't know if it's almost annoying your friends to a degree, because you're just like, oh, it's Guy's fucking obsessive dude, just obsessing over films. All he wants to talk about is fucking films. And he's lost touch with reality, and, that's kind of what you imagine. And you imagine when you say, oh, look, I'm sorry, I haven't caught up with you for 2 or 3 months. That's a big insult to them, because, and it's just because you've been working really hard on the filmmaking or whatever, but you think that to them, they don't see that. You think to them that it's just like you're too cool for them for that time. And so I have that problem a lot. And so, it is good to know that, people don't actually feel that way. And so, all I'm saying is just take the fucking time to tell people you love them.
Mm-hmm.
And their work.
Well, I've got a few things to say about that.
Good.
Start at the beginning. Terry Pratchett. Yep. I too have fond memories of reading some of his books. The very first one I ever read is the one that has sort of stuck with me the most. Now, I haven't read as many as you have.
Yep.
Have you read all of them?
I haven't read all of them. I probably, because, the last sort of 3 I maybe fell off on.
Right, yeah.
So I think there's about 40. I reckon I've probably read about 32 of them.
Right. See, well, I'm quite excited, because I sort of have all of that in my future still.
Yeah.
And all of the books of his that I have read, I have really enjoyed. But the very first one I read was Moving Pictures, which was essentially a sort of a send-off of Hollywood and the filmmaking, and basically they've got a guy kind of discovers a way. They invent this camera, and what they do is they have little gnomes that live inside a box, and they can draw really, really quickly, and they draw each frame as it happens. They paint it, but you've got to keep them happy, otherwise, they start getting angry and refusing to draw and so on. And the protagonist is an actor, but he can't sing, he can't dance, he can handle a sword a little bit, and he becomes becomes famous as a result of starring in these films. And it really kind of, I guess, it did have an effect on me, because I was like, I think I was about 11 when I first read that. I've read it a couple of times, actually. First time I read it, I was 11, and it really kind of it did inspire me. I guess it also kind of got me thinking about filmmaking in a way as well.
Yeah.
Sort of another angle on filmmaking. So yeah, I did really enjoy that. Also, he was a very vocal and outspoken humanist, which is sort of the ideology that I align myself with.
Right.
So, he was, anti-religion and pro euthanasia and, these types of things. So from a political and ideological standpoint, we had a lot in common. So yeah, I'm quite saddened to hear of his passing as well. And with regards to telling people that you love them or love their work, or reaching out to people whose work you admire, I reached out. I reached out to 2 people, actually.
Yeah.
First person I reached out to. Now, this is not so much somebody that I admire, but it was more like I want to make contact with this local artist, Randa, who is a local rapper. And I just thought, you know what? I do quite enjoy this person's music videos. I should send them a message and just be like, hey, I've checked out a bunch of your music videos. I think it's cool what you're doing. This is like a very, very local rapper kind of thing. So I wrote this wee message of praise, yep, cool. I've been enjoying your stuff. I've checked it out, yada, yada, yada. To which I got a 1-word response saying, and the word said, shot, ! And I was like, well, that was that was a deflating way to end that sort of conversation. Didn't even really try to to get back at me, to encourage the interaction or anything like that. Made me kind of just feel like a goofy fan.
Right.
Like a goofy fanboy or something like that.
Well, that's the risk, isn't it? and I think that's the thing, is you have to remember that this person or these people may not give you anything, because I'll also say I've written to other people and said I really love your stuff, and I've never heard back, and that kind of made me go, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore, because they didn't care.
Paints you as an obsessive fan or something, maybe.
But the thing is, I think that people will take these things on board, and just it'll lighten their day for a brief little minute. It's not going to have the same what you say to Terry Pratchett is going to be nothing to what Terry Pratchett has said to you through his books, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's still going to be oh shit, I have hundreds of thousands of people telling me this, but shit, man, it still feels good.
Yeah, well, listen, Randa doesn't have hundreds of thousands of people commenting. Randa has fucking me.
It's you.
It's me commenting. So
yeah, well, look, maybe
sort your shit out, Randa.
Is it he?
Well,
he, she?
Well, look, I think he identifies as a he, but I'm actually a little bit unsure, and I was wondering if you were going to bring that up or not. Yeah. Because I'm really not sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure he identifies as a he, but it's possible that he was born a she, but I really don't know.
I think you just have to accept that people might be a bit dicky about it.
Yeah.
But still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, because the other person I did do it to someone else, was this other rapper / poet, Dominic Hoey, who's Tourette's. His rap name is Tourette's.
Yeah.
And I sort of sent him a message saying, sent him a poem, and he watched it and he liked it and he said well done, and then I wanted to build the relationship, and I also wanted to see some of his better work, so I sent him a message. I was like, hey man, thanks for watching my poem. Also, what do you recommend of your stuff that I should watch and check it out? I'm trying to build a bridge here,
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't know, man, just check out my Tumblr. And I was like, oh, okay, not even a link to the Tumblr, and then so I had to go and find it myself. And it's not so much that he didn't get back to me, because he did. I actually went to one of his shows and had a chat to him, and he's sent me some feedback and advice on Facebook and so on. But it was more just an opportunity missed to get his stuff out. He wasn't too interested in sort of just getting his stuff in front of me,
well,
when I was actively asking for it.
The problem is, though, you don't, I think there's this reluctance to open the lines of communication, because the thing is, you can't get into a situation where you're just talking to all these people that like your stuff. If you and I know this from filmmaking as well, is people say, hey man, I really enjoyed your film or whatever. That's great, and I will do my best to respond to that. But I also don't really want to be your friend.
Here's the thing, asshole. I don't want to be your friend.
Not because we couldn't be great friends, you and I, but more because I have to make the next thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard with all all these people sort of talking to you and wanting to engage with you and like back and forth dialogues like that. That's what prevents you from getting on with the next script or the next cut or the next thing. And so I think that's a bit of a defense mechanism and for some people where they kind of like, I better kind of just blunt off the edges of this conversation so that he does no longer talks to me.
Yeah. Well, it's true. It is annoying because reasonably regularly people will send us or me messages online as well. And I always have a chat. I love having a chat and I encourage people to continue sending me messages.
Yep.
But yeah, sometimes I do feel a bit bad when kind of like someone's trying to have like a full-on conversation, on chat, and it's like, well, I don't actually I basically never chat to my friends, my actual real life friends on Facebook.
We never have a chat.
No, never
on Facebook.
So when I have a chat with people online, it's almost always people that I don't actually know
at all.
And I tend to avoid sitting on chat because it really isn't kind of very productive. I like to be on Facebook trying to comment and share and I don't know, like promote. I guess I see where he's coming from. But I actually went after that. I went to one of his gigs, right? The other night, one of Tourette's gigs, and it was really good. It was really good fun. It was at the Wine Cellar on K Road, and it was like quite a small gig, but really fun, really good vibe. And there was like this. It was just an interesting evening. There was this meth head who showed up, and he was yelling out. He kind of stumbled in real drunk and sat down, and then Tourette's was up on the mic doing a poem, and he was talking about meth, and he said that he did meth last weekend, but he didn't have any more because he had just broken up with his meth friend, who incidentally was also his girlfriend.
Yeah.
But I was just sitting there. I went by myself, so I was kind of sitting there. I was like, this is great. This is part of the show. This is part of the evening. This is part of the event. So for me, the whole evening was just very interesting and very fun, as well as the performances were cool.
Well, next topic, fan feedback. Mm-hmm. This one's from Tyler Adams. Now we're getting into film talk, baby.
Yep. Good.
So this is he wanted to know about our auditioning process, our casting process, how we cast people, what we look for, what is that process?
Well, it's all on this one website. It's called castingcouch.com. Just look that up.
What's that?
Well, it was guaranteed to be a porn site.
Oh, right.
Guaranteed. I haven't checked it, but I'm assuming it's got to be a porn site. And keeping in line with the casting couch porn phenomenon, which I'm sure you've been keeping up with.
I have not been keeping up with it.
Well, it's like basically what they do is they take a porn star, some guy, and they give him a camera, and it's all fake, but they shoot it as if it's not, and basically they pretend that it's casting couches for porn.
Right.
So there'll be some 18-year-old girl who comes in.
I've seen those.
I'm very familiar with this. And they sort of and they basically they say this is your audition to be in porno sort of thing, and they get the girl. They go, okay, good. So that's good. So now just give me some blowjob. Yep, nice, and bend over and blah blah blah. And it is all fake and it's all set up, I'm pretty sure, but it's done usually done in such a way that it kind of seems like you're seeing something, the porn industry from the inside.
Yeah.
And there's something sexy about that.
Sure. Well, that's not how we conduct our auditions. But so basically for me, the auditioning process, I think one of my strengths actually is casting. So I think that's one thing that we do right.
I'd agree with that.
Because you were cast as the lead in the zombie film.
Because I've been in everything you've ever made.
But I think, and it's interesting because I think, some actors, when they go into an audition, they're like, right, I'm the right person for this role. And I'm going to do such a great performance that I'm going to make sure that is, seen. But what you find is actually that people can audition really well and not be right for the role. And if you're just not what I have imagined, then it doesn't matter that you do a really good audition, because I'm thinking about how you're going to go up against all the other pieces in the film. So I'm not just thinking about yes, you can act. I'm thinking yes, you can act, but are you going to gel with me? Or are you going to gel with Harley? Or are you going to gel with this other actress that I've cast? Or are you right for this particular character given this character's context in the entire film and who else is involved? And that's not something that you normally think about as an actor. You just think, oh, if I just come in and nail it, that'll be that. But actually what I've found often when I've been casting is, and this has been true for all the things, is that you will, like, you audition lots and lots of people, and for every single role, there'll be one definitive person that stands out well and truly head and shoulders above the rest. They will just be so far beyond everyone else in terms of what you imagine, in terms of your character that you envisaged, that they will sort of just, like, there won't be any question in your mind. But it's not necessarily because they did the best acting. It's more about how they fit with the character. It's more about, because when I'm casting, I'm almost looking for, a lot of the time, you know, that they have some traits and qualities of the character. So there's some essence of them that is similar to the character. There's just something about them, whether it's their look, whether it's their attitude, whatever, but they have these qualities and this essence that I think the character is, and then when they do the part, I can bring that forth. So, you know, for example, you know, I mean, let's talk about the zombie film, for example. So, you know, you're maybe the exception to the rule in terms of that. But I was thinking about this last night. I'm not necessarily sure. So Wesley Pennington, he's this nerdy, geeky guy. What was the thing that you both have in common?
We're balding. We're both balding.
Yeah, he's referred to in the script as a nerdy, balding Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And basically, you know, like, you're actually quite a cool guy.
Thanks, buddy.
You know, you're not really a nerdy guy. You don't watch lots of films. You don't live with your parents.
No.
You know, you've got plenty of life experience. So why did I cast you? Well, you know, one of the reasons is that I knew that comedically you could play all the funny stuff really well. So I knew that in terms of, like, this, keeping the film entertaining and being funny and maintaining that, I knew that you could do that really well. But I also think that there is a little essence of you, Wesley, and it's that annoying little Australian kid that I met at fucking, you know, what was it, 13, 14?
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, when you're playing Wesley, in my head anyway, you're bringing that naivety and that kind of optimism and stuff that, you know, and that, hey, it's me, Harley, to Wesley. In a way. So actually, you know, although in many ways you're very different from the character, there is that thing, and I felt like, you know, that's what you were focusing on when you were performing, and I don't know whether that's true or not, but that was just the impression that I had. And I also just believed in you. So, you know, I really believed in you, and I just, you know, and that's the thing, I do it two different ways. So either I'm looking for the essence of the person as like the character I've written, or I've written that character for a person. So often what happens, you know, is as we sort of accumulate actors and people I know, I start thinking of characters for these people.
Yeah.
And I do that quite a lot, and I enjoy doing that because I like to think of the filmmaking and as a big family, and I'm working with this big family who hopefully I can bring in and work with again. I really enjoy that idea and that concept. So, you know, when I'm thinking about the next movie or whatever, I'm thinking of, you know, what of all this acting troupe that I have, these people I know, what do they do really well? What can they play really well? And then how can I write a character that maximizes their strengths? I also think dialogue's another very important, very key for me. Like, my writing is quite dialogue heavy. And I think there's also just a certain way and a certain delivery which can make it seem really natural and conversational. And some people just have a knack for that. You know my voice, so you can just do that. And I think some people really pick up on that, and they just pick up on it, and they can just say those words, and it sounds really great. But there's another people that they just don't quite mesh with it, and so everything sounds stilted and wrong. And so you're looking for that kind of that person that can do that sort of conversational delivery, and I guess that it's acting without acting, and of course we all talk about that, but it's a very loose, casual way, I think, for our films and the stuff we do. Very, very casual, and there's a whole different school of acting which is just as effective, but you wouldn't likely see that as much in our films, I don't think. And I also think, someone like Leisha Ward-Knox, who I cast opposite me and Older, she plays Jenny. And, for her, her audition wasn't amazing. It was solid, but it wasn't amazing. But I'd already had like a coffee with her. And basically I sat down and just had a great dialogue and a great conversation with her. And it was like she was the character. It was like I was talking to the character, this person. And what I wanted as well is I wanted someone who would really bounce well off me. So I was looking for someone that it could seem realistic that we had hung out for 10 years. It could seem realistic that we had a long history together. So I was looking for that very specific thing. And that was, as soon as we sat down and chatted, it was like, yeah, we'd known each other forever. We're still very good friends. And, so I wanted to play off that, that friendship and that, I guess, that idea that you bounce that well off someone, because that was the dynamic between Alex, my character, and Jenny. Whereas, for Stephanie, you needed someone a little bit more aloof, a little bit more distant. And so for Astra, she's fantastic, but, the dynamic was slightly different. And then you play that dynamic into the performances, and because you have that, and so it's not that same best friends sort of relationship, and therefore the tone of it will be different as you perform, and so that's sort of my sort of approach anyway.
Well, so Older was the second feature that we shot. Leisha played Jenny, who was sort of a best friendy kind of character, best friend / lover, and Astra McLaren played Stephanie, who was more of an aloof model, sort of also an old friend, but an aloof model, maybe a little bit kind of more high maintenance style character.
And was also,
and I remember when Astra auditioned, I feel like she really nailed it. Like I remember her leaving and thinking like, wow, she was really good. There was a bunch of people that did really great auditions.
Yeah.
But I did feel like she stuck out in my memory. And I feel like a big part of it actually is that the real audition is in between takes. Like it's about how do you get along with the director? How do you get along with everyone else? How do you come across? Do you come across as someone who's going to be easy to work with, who's going to take direction well, or do you come across as someone who's going to be a bit rigid and difficult, or what's the deal? Like I remember when casting for Older, there was this one woman who came in and auditioned. She was very, very beautiful, and she came from a rich family, I recall, and she was very beautiful, and her audition was in this particular case actually pretty terrible anyway. She didn't do a great audition, but that was okay for me because it wasn't horrible, and she had the right look. But what happened that really kind of made me say definitely not to this person was that she. I was acting across from her, pretending to be Alex, because Guy was behind the camera filming it and looking at the acting, and so I was just standing in sort of thing. And I remember there was this one particular scene where we sort of had to almost get intimate, but not, like we just had to get kind of close to each other, and I think, and we were sort of holding hands, and it was kind of about the intimacy of that moment, without being weird. There was no kissing or anything like that, and I remember, like, you know, we'd be acting, and then as soon as Guy yelled cut, she'd like drop my hand as if it was like, as if I was a fucking leper, you know, and like look away, you know, like in the scene, you know, immediately prior, we're like making eye contact and shit, because, you know, this is kind of a very intimate scene, and then as soon, you know, she was eyes away, eyes averted, hand dropped, you know, and I felt like she was probably going to be like, or in her mind, she was like, oh, this guy, this fucking little bald perv's going to get the wrong idea, so, you know, and so, but like what it just made her seem like kind of bitchy, you know, it was like steady on, you know, like Jesus, I'm just, you know, like there's nothing.
Yeah. Well, I will say that also the other thing we do, and this is part of to do with budget, right? But we don't have a casting director, so we cast all our stuff. Which is quite good because you do get to see those people in between takes. And I remember that when I was casting the zombie film, I didn't tell anyone that I was the director. You know, I didn't really say that unless, you know, they sort of asked me what I did.
Yeah.
I was more just like some random auditioning guy.
Yeah.
So I was just off camera and sort of giving them a few notes. So.
Yeah.
I was essentially pretending to be like a casting
It was
director.
under deep cover.
Yeah, and so that gave me a real opportunity to see how people were, and there were a couple of fucking assholes who, you know, were just like very disrespectful and rude, both not just to me but to the person they're acting opposite, the reader.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, fuck, man, there's no way I'm going to use someone like that.
Yeah.
You know, if that's your attitude, you know, if you're coming in too big for your britches now, Jesus Christ, like think about the film. And I also think just one other kind of quite important thing is show up to audition knowing your lines. It's a big tip.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people don't take that seriously. And it's very hard, like, and it's not even that I won't see people that don't know them, but it's very difficult for me to tell how you're acting when you're constantly looking up and down at your script.
Yeah.
Reading.
Well, also, I mean, it's just, I mean, like, sometimes there are going to be exceptions to this rule, but generally speaking, if a person hasn't bothered to learn the lines, it doesn't really set the sort of doesn't set the bar high enough for our productions. You know, it's like you want to know that they're going to show up, do their lines, not waste your time. They're going to know their lines. They're going to be prepared.
Yep.
You know, I mean, which I feel like is a fairly basic thing to ask for. You know, that's not of an actor. You know, that the actor knows their lines off by heart. And so yeah, like so just learn your lines because it doesn't really look good.
Also, the other thing is like there was a guy, you know, who was kind of quite a sort of well-renowned theatre actor who auditioned for the role of SMP in the zombie film, and obviously had this big monologue because that was the audition piece I gave him, and he was like, well, I haven't really learned this, but I'm just going to kind of like go off it and then like sort of do improv, like, you know, improvise off this, you know, and I was kind of
which is cool if you can do it.
Yeah, and I was like, sure. And he was terrible. Like, he was just a stuttering, blabbering idiot, and like nothing like SMP would be. And it was because he was trying to, you know, do this improvisation. It's like, no, all you had to do was learn the lines, mate. It was as simple as that. And if you like, if you want to improvise, like improvise off the end of knowing your lines.
Yeah.
Don't just improvise off not knowing your lines and kind of fudging your way through it. So that's our acting audition process.
Right, so you, on a completely unrelated note, have your sister's wedding coming up very soon.
That's right. My youngest sister,
the youngest sister,
Abby, is getting married. She's getting married in April.
So she's 26, you're 32, practically,
correct.
And she's getting married,
and I'm not.
And you don't even have a girlfriend.
Look, there are certain moments in your life where you really take stock of things.
This is one of them.
And this is one of those times where you go, wow, like people are really like, here's my sister, 6 years younger than me.
My baby sister.
Yeah, who's more of a grown-up than me now. She has...
I mean, when I met her, she was like literally 7 or 6.
Something like that. She has now surpassed me as an adult in terms of adult things that you do, in terms of being mature, in terms of growing and evolving. She's gone further than I have with a 6-year disadvantage.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is at these times where you go, shit.
Man, what have I done with my life?
What the fuck am I doing? Certainly those thoughts cross your mind, but this is even a little bit funnier if you like laughing at my expense.
Which I do. That's my favorite kind of laughing.
Is that, essentially, my ex is going to be at this wedding.
Yeah.
With her new boyfriend.
Yes.
Who's, they're quite very serious.
Yeah.
And so, here's me, who has not made any progression, zero anything going on.
Still working on the same film you were working on last time you saw her.
Nothing, absolutely doing nothing. Absolutely have not, and she's done all this amazing stuff in terms of her career as well.
Yeah.
Got a PhD and all that stuff, and then she's going to be there.
And this guy who she's obviously bringing to the wedding is going to know who you are.
Yeah,
and
sure.
obviously, there's several reasons why he'll know. Sorry. One is that it's your sister's wedding,
Yep.
and I feel like at some point that's going to have come up in conversation that she used to see the bride's brother.
Yep.
Also, she has helped out on some of our films and bits and pieces, and I feel like that would have come up at some point as well.
Definitely.
Why was she involved with these productions?
Yeah.
As well, because she was with the director for a while there.
Yeah.
So he's gonna know, and now we're completely speculating, but it really depends on what kind of person he is. But he could, on the one hand, he could be very understanding and just not really give a shit at all, or on the other hand, he could be sitting back smugly, looking at you walk around.
Bastard.
He could be looking at you, sitting at your table. Everyone else will have they'll
Plus
have those,
ones.
They'll have plus ones. They'll have those little name cards. That's it's like Harley and Angie,
yes,
or whatever and whatever, and then there'll just be Guy. Just by itself, just sitting there by itself, on the end of some table somewhere.
And I literally will just be sitting on the end of some table somewhere, nursing a drink.
Yeah. Where can you fit in, a one-seater? At a wedding full of couples, where can you fit in the person who sits by himself? You have to put him with the other single people. Well, and we've asked.
Yeah, we've got some intel.
There's no single people.
Apparently, there is 0 single people at this wedding.
So it's literally 20 couples and Guy.
Yeah. One of them being my ex,
and the other one being his sister, who is 6 years younger than him and getting married. And
then the other being my ex, who is now infinitely happier without me and has moved on to much more glorious things.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what I'm going to be doing in April.
But so there is a point to this rant, which is that Guy is going down to Dunedin in April. I don't know if Guy knows this is the point of this rant.
Well, I don't. We were finished.
But Guy's going down to Dunedin sometime in early April, and the wedding is sort of mid-April, and he is going to be needing a date. So, obviously his sister is the bride, which means he can totally get you a +1 if you're keen.
Yeah.
And there'll almost certainly be some free booze and nibbles. So, if you're looking for a good night out in Dunedin in April, mid-April, you should consider going as Guy's +1. Now, preferably, you would be an attractive female.
But...
Oh, here comes your fucking mate from Trustpower.
Too early.
Or Orcon, or wherever the fuck he's from. There's someone knocking at the door right now. What's he from?
Oh, no, he's come from the same... It's a Trustpower,
Trustpower, yeah. He's come. So do you want to have a chat to him?
No, I don't really.
Are we just going to sit here and ignore him?
Well, the thing is, we're in the middle of this podcast.
Okay. Well, look, so anyway, in conclusion, please... get in touch with Guy on Facebook if you want to go to a wedding in mid-April in Dunedin. And you don't have to be an attractive female. Just a female.
Yeah, look,
or a nice guy,
or a nice dude that will make interesting conversation.
Yeah,
talk about video games and stuff.
Yeah. So if you could do that, that'd be great.
So that'd be good. We did have one other topic to go over, which was another fan question.
Yes.
Tyler Adams again. Indiegogo campaign.
Yeah.
Which we ran for Older.
Yep.
The post-production on that is when are we going to run another campaign to raise money for post?
Right. Yeah.
That was a question.
So basically we raised $5,700 on Indiegogo.
Yeah.
Oh no, Rick's answered the door. Our other flatmate has answered the door, which means this power station guy wants to talk to Guy, and Rick's going to knock on my bedroom door right now.
Yeah,
I mean the studio door.
The studio door. He's not. He will knock on this in the studio on the studio. But anyway, so they asked, when would we start raising funds for that?
Yeah.
The answer is hopefully never. Yes,
hopefully, because so we got $5,700 from an Indiegogo campaign to shoot our second feature film, Older, and we used it to do the actual production, and it went really well, and we were pretty stoked on all of that. But of course, there is going to be some post production expenses, like when you want to color grade a feature film, you're going to spend
well, look, I'll just give you the idea. I mean, more probably. Depending on it, but just to give you an idea of what a color grader might charge per day, $800.
Right, and how many days work is one feature film?
Oh, at least a month.
So 30 times $800. What's what you're telling me?
Yeah, but he might round that off a little bit.
Yeah.
But that just as a standard day rate.
Yeah.
Post house very similar. So it's not cheap.
No.
But we're looking at alternative ways to sort of raise that money, and we also have a lot of favors we can call in. So we'll try and avoid that. I think it's more likely we might come on board more to ask for maybe like a post production where it's for sort of lawyer fees and stuff like that.
There's so many costs that people don't associate. They just don't really think of when you're making a film. There's lawyers that need to be paid to look at the film to make sure that there's nothing in there that's copywritten or no brands that don't want to be involved or this type of thing. There's lawyers that you're not going to get distribution until you've kind of sorted out these things that the lawyers need to look at. There's also your color grading, which is just making all the shots look the same as each other. They might have been shot on different days in sun or in overcast or whatever, and they need to all kind of look the same, so someone has to color grade it, someone has to do that. Then there's the sound mix and the score for the music, any visual effects, any the credits need to be done by somebody, and you want them to look cool. You don't want just like a shitty Final Cut Pro scroll going up your screen, So all of that stuff is just literally thousands or tens of thousands of dollars worth of sort of post-production.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you, for instance, on the zombie film, the zombie film as a whole cost just over $250,000. $50,000 of that was post-production. So a quarter of the film's budget was post-production, and if anything, we under...
Well, that's terrible maths, but yeah.
It's not a fifth. Fifth. A fifth of that, and we underestimated, if anything, on that account. So, these things do add up, but, we're going to try and work around that, because you don't want to just keep going back and asking people for money all the time.
Yeah.
Instead, we just keep going back and asking people to do things for free,
which is almost as bad.
What else we got?
Well, we do have another viewer question here coming from Patrick Paul. Now, Patrick Paul here says, "Hey guys, I've just caught up with the show and have been enjoying it. Keep it up."
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick. That's great. I want to get your thoughts on Adam Sandler's Pixels trailer.
Yep.
Also, the criticism of superhero movies by some in Hollywood and James Gunn's defense. He says, if you've already talked about that, I'm sorry. Now, we have discussed superhero movies and the criticism of them, and I criticize them a lot because I hate them personally. So I don't know who the fuck James Gunn is.
He's the guy that directed Guardians of the Galaxy, which you haven't seen.
Which I also haven't seen, yes. What we'll start with, though, is Adam Sandler's Pixels trailer. Now, I hadn't seen this until Patrick asked about it, so I did some watching of it, and here are my thoughts on it. Firstly, So basically, this film's about, we've sent out the orbiter like ages ago. We sent out this spacecraft in the 80s in 1982 with it had some music of ours on it, and it had an engraving in various languages, kind of saying who we are, kind of thing. As an attempt to contact aliens, but it was more done as a token. It wasn't really expecting to contact aliens because obviously a signal would travel a lot faster than a spaceship. It was more just, I guess a time capsule sort of scenario.
Yep.
So they sent out the ship in 1982. Aliens found it, and then they have sent to Earth video game enemies to destroy us because they've seen this stuff about our culture in this time capsule. And so
I'll just say the origins of this is actually based off a short film.
Oh, right.
Called Pixels, I think, as well, which was very popular maybe a few years ago.
Right.
Which was basically this guy had done this concept, and he hadn't paid any royalties or anything like that, but had basically shown these video game characters, retro video game characters like Pac-Man and etc., kind of taking over a city and like destroying a city.
Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So, firstly, I'd say about this trailer of Pixels. Firstly, the ship sent out in 1982 has barely made it out of our solar system. So unless these aliens live on Pluto, it's pretty unlikely that they've seen it.
Thank you, Professor. Fucking hell. Well, all right, go on.
Secondly, I felt like the trailer really played up the serious side of it. It almost seemed like a serious action film. Now, there was obviously some jokes in there, but it kind of it was almost in this uncomfortable middle ground between disaster film and like ridiculous, silly, outrageous Sharknado style, comedy film. And I really feel like they should have gone for that ridiculous Sharknado comedy film sort of angle, because it was just kind of, I was just really
tonally weird.
Yeah, it was. And then third, it's kind of clearly just a massive ad for like Namco or whoever it is that owns Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and all of those things.
Nintendo owns Donkey Kong.
Right. Well, all of those, it was kind of just very clearly a sort of a big ad for them, and also an ad for Mini. Because it's got these kind of hero cars in it with full of glamour shots, and it's minis. They're minis, and they make them look very shiny and pretty and beautiful. And I don't know, it just seemed very much like this was just a big ad for dumb people. And then fourthly, I feel like Adam Sandler should probably stop making films because he's besmirching the good memory of Happy Gilmore.
Adam Sandler has taken a big tumble. There's no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. And, part of that problem is we've all encouraged it, same way.
By going to a shitty film?
Yeah, there was a period where Adam Sandler, there was literally an article about Adam Sandler's films, every single film grossing over $100 million.
Right.
And we're talking about the worst of Adam Sandler's films. We're talking about, Click. And
Click wasn't that, but that's
Mr.
the one
Deeds,
about where he's got a remote. That one I actually kind of enjoyed. Click, all right. It got quite dark towards the end.
It did get a bit dark towards the end,
and I was feeling that. I enjoyed the concept.
I guess what I looked at, with Adam Sandler, I mean, there is a problem with Adam Sandler, is because he just he's gotten into this position where his films have become more and more family friendly.
Yeah.
Right.
I hate it when that happens. It also happened to Steve Martin.
Yep.
And Chris Rock and
sure.
all those guys. They all went from these kind of funny adult entertainers to being these shitty family entertainers, and it's because obviously the bigger the audience, the more money you're going to make.
The bucks.
The bigger the bucks, exactly.
And he's become, to be fair, he's become a victim of his own success. So essentially you have people, all these sort of younger kids adopting these more adult films that he's done, and so then the next film has to be more orientated towards those kids, but then it goes further and further until you get to the point where you're just doing silly, you've completely lost the edge and what was great about you to begin with.
Yeah.
And that has happened long ago. I mean, that's probably happened 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the last...
Waterboy was good.
Yeah, Waterboy was solid. I think Big Daddy was okay. And I also think Anger Management was kind of a nice, rise in quality above all the rest of the stuff. But, and so this one does not look good.
No.
Pixel does not look. It's a cool concept, just in terms of, but like again, you're right. They've done it. They're trying to play it off like Godzilla, and it's serious. But the inherent idea of monster retro video games coming,
destroying New York
is silly.
Yeah.
So, but I think they're probably thinking about how popular Godzilla was, and so the tone of the trailer and stuff like that has, not really, done it any favors. It could actually be quite a bit sillier and funnier. I thought the end bit with the Pac-Man guy was all right.
Yeah.
Was kind of funny. Although why, when Pac-Man bit his hand turned all pixelated instead of just biting his hand off?
Well, no, because that was what was happening all throughout the film. There was like things getting turned pixelated, like as if that was like the way things
so
die in video
happens.
games.
Right.
Yeah, that's what happens.
They turn into bits.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen that trailer, that's for Pixels starring Adam Sandler, so go check it out. We might even put it in the description or something. Maybe we should start doing that.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, but I would probably steer clear.
Yeah, well, it didn't inspire me. Another viewer question. I don't know if you got anything to say about this. Thomas Wyatt said, what's the deal with 9/11? Was that an inside job or
Jesus
what's
Christ?
going on there?
This is the stuff that I don't really want to get into because it's so fucking ridiculous. But anyway, what's your take?
Well, my take is that no, it wasn't an inside job. Like, it's so farcical to believe that a cover-up of this size could be undertaken. Like, there are some people saying that the planes never even flew into it. Like, because basically the general kind of consensus amongst, 9/11 deniers is that it was planned to, it was a controlled destruction of both towers by the American government in order to justify their war on terror.
Yeah.
And that it was a controlled demolition.
Yeah.
And they say that the planes aren't even there. That, like, a lot of people say the planes are literally not there. Like, it's every single case of the towers being recorded and the planes flying into them, it's all computer generated.
Right.
And all the eyewitness testimony, it's all lies. It's laughable. Like, the extent of that cover up is just so huge that it's mind-bogglingly, stupid to believe that this could even be an inside job.
Yep.
So yes, I don't really think that it was an inside job. I think that what happened was that the American government, being as opportunistic as they are, saw this big disaster and saw it as a way to launch their war.
They used it to their advantage,
secure their oil and all the rest of it. It's obviously a big event, and it's something that they could really use to their advantage. And they have professional PR people who sort of go, okay, fuck, how can we turn this around? How can we make this good for us? And within minutes of it happening, I bet there was people thinking of a spin for it and thinking about what they were going to do with it. And so what happened was Al-Qaeda did do the attack. Al-Qaeda did do the attack, but the American government took advantage of it and maximized it, and that's really what happened. And there was no conspiracy.
No, well, my dad is he's an expert on conspiracy theories. He does.
Your dad is?
Yeah, he does papers on them.
Oh, really? I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. So, and in fact, he spoke on like.
Well, then you should be loving talking about this stuff because you have a sort of an insightful angle.
Well, this is one of the core principles that he's sort of explained about conspiracy theories, and he does not believe that the 9/11 attacks are it's not a conspiracy.
Yeah, well, that's
but
good.
Basically, the core principle of any conspiracy theory is that it cannot be it has to be small enough to be contained and controlled. Mm-hmm. So no conspiracy, the larger the conspiracy theory, the less likely it is to be real because of the amount of people you're talking about. In this case, thousands upon thousands of people being in on this, and then none of them sort of
speaking out.
Exactly, and all of them being under secrecy. So, whereas something like the moon landing, right, at the time, I don't think that's necessarily, they may well have got to the moon and all that stuff, but at the time, the media could be controlled. The
Yeah.
media was, and this was just, 3 or 4 networks broadcasting this stuff. That
Yeah.
is easy to control
Yeah.
in a way that it is impossible to control hundreds of thousands of people watching
Yeah.
planes crash into a thing, and then the thousands and thousands of government people in charge that orchestrated that whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's the levels of, the levels involved.
Yeah.
It's just too, like, if you just sat and thought about it for a second, it's almost impossible to comprehend how deep it would have to go
Yeah.
for it to work. So, no, it is not a conspiracy.
Just for the record, you do believe that we landed on the moon, right?
I think that we did definitely land on the moon. I think that in terms of conspiracies, if I was going to lean that way, I would say that they didn't land on the moon at that time.
Right.
So they did, definitely.
Yeah.
And have done, not, but that at that time when it was the space race and all that shit and it was really important,
Yeah.
that maybe they did a false reenactment of it just before they were quite ready because they wanted to get there first.
Right.
That would be my only. That would be the only way I think that it is realistic. But I don't really have an opinion on it either way.
Right.
So that's our take on that. 9/11 is solved.
So thanks for your question there, Tom.
Got it all covered.
Well, I think we've got time for one of our segments, actually.
Yes.
This is a very, very brief segment, a very brief episode of The Troll Hole. So I did get one comment on my poem that because I performed poetry a couple of weeks ago and I filmed it and I put it online, and it's a poem about religion and my lack of belief in religion, and I did get a comment from, most of the comments have been pretty positive, but I got a comment from this guy Karas.
Yep.
He says, "No wonder he's a hedonistic atheist. He talks like a common nigger."
Oh my god. It's so bad, like it's so bad when people like just there's so many things wrong with that statement.
I know.
But like it's like when people say something that digs themselves so deeply into a hole of like, oh, we can't go there.
Yeah.
That it's like that even the people that are on their side have to move away from them.
They're like, yeah, I can't really support this guy. I might be religious, but I cannot support this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Who is on the same side as me.
I adamantly believe, but I absolutely cannot endorse that statement.
Yeah. So that's good. So that's been the Troll Hole. The Troll Hole is our weekly segment where we read out the hate that we receive online
That was
for
a
our
good
videos.
one. That was a goodie.
Well, it was a good one, yeah.
Now, I also did just want to talk. I have to do
Okay.
it.
What do you got?
Just want to bring up Star Wars again.
Shit. All right, what's the deal with
My
Star Wars
beloved
at the
Star
moment?
Wars.
Yep.
Well, look, I was thinking about, we had this conversation last week about sequels and
Yep.
sequels ruining things and sequels that pick up 20 or 30 years later.
Yep.
Now, obviously, this new Star Wars, right, is not written or in any way affiliated with George Lucas.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because there's been a lot of really good Star Wars universe books and so on written by people who are not George Lucas.
That's true. However, right, George Lucas was in fact thinking about doing this new trilogy himself. And there's sort of proof of this that he was sort of kind of gathering the elements together in 2012, right?
Yeah.
He was talking to those he was talking to Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, about reprising the role. But then basically what happened is Disney approached him just around that time that he was putting those gears in motion and were like, hey, we'll buy the whole thing off you.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm out. I've been the custodian of this thing for 30, 40 years, and it will be in, relatively speaking, good hands with Disney.
Well, but sure, okay, but like, is that not a cash cow that he just gave away? Did he not just kill the golden goose? Like, if he had kept the
We did
rights
remember
to that
it was
and he could pass those rights on to his kids.
$4 billion.
That's what they paid him?
Yeah,
Fuck me, that's a lot of money. $4 billion.
I think so. Yep.
Jesus, I didn't realize. Yeah, I mean, he must be rich as fuck anyway.
Well, I think here was the thing for
if
him.
he owned the rights to it and passed it on to his children would be rich forever, right?
Yeah, but I think it was just the whole running of it.
Yeah.
You know, like he was, like, because he's basically the corporate, he's the CEO.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a full-time job. Being in charge of just all the stuff that's happening, that's a full-time job that he never even wanted. He was a filmmaker. He just kind of stumbled into that. So I think that was part of the issue. But I guess my thought was this, right? So these are not his films. He was planning to make some films. These are not his films. In fact, what has been largely said is he did a rough treatment that he passed on, you know, to Disney, and kind of J.J. Abrams and Disney threw that out and went in a different direction. And
that's funny that they'd do that.
And he said that they kind of like, he had a take on it, but they decided to go in a different direction. So he's publicly said that. Right. So, and he has nothing to do with them. Because I always thought that, like, he would be, at the beginning, he was like a creative consultant, you know? And so they go, hey, George, you know, we're going to do this. And he go, you know what? That's not true of the character.
Yeah.
So probably think of something else.
That would be such a difficult relationship.
Sure. Well, that's why they didn't do it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so then what you're looking at, right, is these Star Wars films have nothing to do with the creator of Star Wars. Now, I guess my issue with that is that means they're not Star Wars, because it's like someone is taken, like, you know, it's one thing if
it's like when somebody made the butterfly effect and then somebody else made the butterfly effect too.
Yep.
It's just not the same.
But it's someone plucking your thoughts from your head, right? You go, these are my thoughts, this is my take, this is how the story goes of these characters that I conceived of and I brought to life and I imagine, right? This is how the story goes. Someone takes your thoughts out of your brain and they go, you know what? They don't do that. They do all these other things. But they do all these other things, but this is still Star Wars. This is still exactly Star Wars. This is the story that you started.
Okay, sure, but he was going to die one day anyway. As you said, we get into a stage where heroes are dying. He was going to die one day anyway, and, you know, the story was going to continue potentially.
Well, no, that's the thing. It didn't have to.
Well, somebody would have owned the rights once he died. You know, like, somebody would have still owned.
But he could have locked up those rights to be like, the rights, you know, so you can make all these things, but you can't make this thing.
Right.
You know.
Well,
so this is the thing though. How is it? It's not Star Wars. It is not a true Star Wars sequel. It is only in name a Star Wars sequel. You know, it's not the guy that made Star Wars' idea for what Star Wars is. So how can it be Star Wars? And that upset me a little bit.
Well, look.
And I'm not even... George Lucas didn't do a great job on the prequels.
Yeah.
So I'm not even saying that his version...
He did a passable job, I think.
I think his version shouldn't... I'm not even saying that his version is the best version. It could be that this version is much better than his. But that's irrelevant to the point that how can you be taking people's... these things that these people have done and making them again and saying that they're the thing, but they're not.
Yeah, well, this happens all the time though, and you know who you can blame? Your homie George Lucas for taking the money. You know, he had ideas. He was thinking of doing it. He was thinking about staying true to the fans, and then he decided to take that big check instead. He, by definition, sold out.
Well, look, he didn't really sell out, because he sold out in the sense that, like, he's 67, right?
Yeah.
So what is he going to do with his
stuff? He was
stuff?
probably going to pass the baton on anyway.
But that's the thing, like, his kids might be like, fuck Star Wars. I've had just about enough of fucking Star Wars.
You know, if I was his kid, I'd be like, fuck Dad. You know, you sold my birthright, man. I could have grown up to be the next, you know, I could have been the director of Star Wars. I could have taken the baton, you know, I could have been the guy who writes it. I could have been, you know, like if Terry Pratchett's son came along and said, I'm going to continue
his daughter is apparently going to write some more Discworld books.
And I feel like there's some merit to that, because that person is affected in a big way. Tolkien's son is continuing it on,
but he's
right?
he's not writing any new stuff.
Right, okay, but still, I feel like there's something to be said for the child of this great person. You know, if anyone has to take it over, it should be his kids. And they're going to do the thing that's probably closest to what their parent would have done.
But to be fair, he probably had that discussion with them.
Yeah, and they were like, "Take the money, Dad."
Yeah, because I'm thinking about my trust fund.
Yeah.
But
Also, I'm like an accountant or something boring.
well, I think his daughter is a writer. I
Right.
think she wrote some of the Clone Wars. I guess I'm not on board with this whole idea that he thought up this thing and now other people are doing the thing but saying that it's the thing. You know? So maybe we should just boycott Star Wars.
Well, maybe we should just wrap up this podcast.
Yes.
Because it is, we've reached that time.
It's time to say,
It's been a good episode, though. I've enjoyed
yes,
it.
me too.
Thank you very much for listening, everybody.
Hey, and don't forget this writing review on iTunes. You know, we've got 2 reviews so far. One from Shane Simpson, one from Harley Neville.
Yeah.
And maybe one more from Guy Pigden. But if you're enjoying this podcast, then write up a review, give it the old 5 stars on iTunes.
Yeah, we really need that, honestly. And another thing we really need is, we really enjoy it when you send us topics to discuss. Doesn't matter what it is, we will have an opinion on it. So please send us through your topics to pigvilleproductions@hotmail.com or on the Facebook page, Pigville Productions, or feel free to add me, Harley Neville, on Facebook.
And we may have some big announcements on next week's podcast about some things to do with I Survived a Zombie Holocaust.
I hope so. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Guy and Harley podcast, proudly brought to you by Pigville Productions.
Laugh it up, fuzzball.